If you've ever wondered how long prednisone takes to work, when will the side effects start or go away, and when will I finally recover from taking prednisone, this video is for you. Welcome to my ultimate guide on prednisone timing. I'm answering your top timing questions, everything you need to know about when and how and why with prednisone. I'm Dr. Megan, a board-certified doctor of pharmacy, third-generation pharmacist, and former prednisone patient myself. Over the past 7 years, I've created over 1,750 videos about prednisone, answering questions, sharing insights, and helping people just like you navigate this challenging medication. But with so many videos in my library, I know it can be overwhelming to find exactly what you're looking for. That's why I created this ultimate guide to bring together the most important videos about prednisone timing in one easy to watch video marathon. In this video, you'll find answers to questions like, what does prednisone do? How should I take it? And what should I expect while taking it? When do prednisone side effects begin? And how long will they last? How long does prednisone stay in your body? And when will your immune system recover? Or your bones? Plus tips on long-term side effects, drug interactions, and much more. I've also included timestamps for each video segment in the description, so you can skip to the exact part if you need to. Whether you're new to prednisone or you've been on it for years, this guide will help you understand how this medication works and how to manage its effects on your body. One thing I want to mention. You'll notice that some of these videos are from my earlier days as a creator. I hope you'll forgive any imperfections in the audio or video quality as you watch. Over the years, I've worked hard to improve my content, and I'm proud of how far I've come. Thank you so much for trusting me as your guide on this journey. Let's dive into the world of prednisone timing. That's how you feel when you're on prednisone. Happy, sad, happy, sad. Because we all want to know, what is prednisone? What's it going to do to me? What prednisone is a paradox. It is two things at the same time. It's two sides of one coin. And I'm going to tell you all about that. First of all, I wanted to tell you the nicknames people who are given prednisone for a long time give it. Here's a list, short one, of what their nicknames are. First of all, Devil's Tic Tac, or Poison. My Meds, the evil miracle drug. One lady said, my husband calls it Prednisone because he gains so much weight on it. Satan. Mr. Bloaty's magic mood pills and appetite stimulants. This one rhymes with witchy and starts with a B. I'm not going to say that on this for my children. And the reason she calls it that is because that's what I become. Devil's Candy. And finally, crack for autoimmune people. If that didn't describe what prednisone is, I don't know how else to better describe it for you. Prednisone is a complete miracle. It cured my disease. Well, it didn't cure it. It put my disease, stopped it from killing me, but it also caused tons of side effects. And I wondered, was the disease actually worse than the side effects? It was hard to tell. That's what I like to call the prednisone paradox. It's a miracle. It saves lives, but it's miserable. It causes so many side effects. It is a cure, but it is a poison. It has more uses than any other drug. Nearly every doctor, every specialist prescribes it, from the emergency room to eye doctors, to kidney doctors, to heart doctors, to lung doctors, and everyone in between. They all prescribe it because it can help with pretty much any body organ system. But even though it's used for more things, it causes more side effects than any other drug. When you put all this together, it shows that prednisone is a jack of all trades. It can pretty much do anything. Yet, it causes more havoc than any other drug. You could say it's, if you were to choose a gun, and drugs are guns, if this is a gun and there are other drugs that are guns, you might say the top prescribed drug in America, it's called levothyroxine for people's thyroid medicine. It does one thing, and it does it really well. It helps replace thyroid medicine for people. That's it. It doesn't do anything else. I mean, it helps replace thyroid hormone for people. And it does nothing else. Whereas prednisone helps people breathe, helps people's kidneys stop failing, helps my body stop attacking my platelets, part of my blood, helps people's vision come back, helps rashes disappear, helps so many different things. And so if you were to make this a gun, it would not be a sniper. That thyroid medicine would be a sniper. It would shoot one thing from a large, far away distance, and it's precise. It does that one thing, and it does that one thing really well. Whereas prednisone does everything, but has scatter everywhere. It is more like the shot of a rifle and it just goes everywhere. And it's not just the bird you were aiming at, but you took down some leaves in the tree, and it's scattered shot all throughout the body. So you're not able to have a great hunting trophy from that animal that you shot because it's covered in all of those different shots. That's what prednisone does. It covers your body with all of the consequences. It causes the osteoporosis, leaching calcium out of bones. It causes insomnia, making it so you can't sleep at night, and the dreaded weight gain. Those are the top 3 side effects that you should be aware of. Those 3. We're going to start over. The top 3 side effects you need to know about are weight gain, osteoporosis, and insomnia or mood changes. It can make you feel completely crazy. It can change the way you feel. And you need to know about those because there are things you can do about it. So I talked about what it's used for. I've talked about the top 3 side effects. And I also have a comprehensive list of all the side effects that they've ever said come from prednisone. And you can check that out here. Then really what we need to know now is, how does it work? So how is it this jack of all trades helping every different body system? Well, what prednisone does is it interferes with inflammation, and it mimics your body's hormone called cortisol that saves you in an emergency. If you are in a drought and there's no food or water, cortisol is what will save you and get you through until you can find food and water. Or if there's a tiger chasing after you, cortisol is this stress hormone that is released to help you run and hide from that immediate threat. And so when we take prednisone, we are taking a boost of stress relief. Whatever that stress is, it doesn't really matter. We need it to help turn off inflammation. And when your body is in that fight or flight moment, when it's trying to decide, do I run from the tiger or do I hide from the tiger? It doesn't care about your bones. And so what it does is it actually takes out those really important things that it's been storing in your bones, energy, minerals, so that you can run and you can cope with that immediate threat. For example, it also releases sugar from your muscles so that you can run, and from your liver, all of these things, so that your muscles have the energy it needs to run and survive. But if you aren't actually using up all of that energy and all of those minerals and all of those things that prednisone is making your body release, then you pee them out, then you have high blood sugar, and that leads to the side effects. So it's Mother Nature designed cortisol to be this miracle to get you through a short-term thing, but we're using it as a prescription drug to get you through a long-term thing. And that's why there's side effects. That's why it's happening, is because we are trading a benefit with all of these risks. And only you and your doctor can decide whether the benefit of why you're taking it, whether that's to breathe or to stop bleeding like me, outweighs the risks, which is 150 side effects, more than any other drug. And if you need help deciding that, I have an article that I can help you think through that process and talk to your doctor about it. Finally, I mentioned that there are so many side effects, but there are things you can do about it. I want you to know that I personally took prednisone and it was miserable, but I found ways to cope. And if you would like a list of those top 15 side effects and what you can do about them, 25 ways to cope, and it's all based on evidence. Just click the link below and it will help you to find ways to fight back against how prednisone is making you feel awful, so that you can take this pill with confidence, knowing that the benefits outweigh the risks and that you're doing everything you can to fight back and to feel well while you're taking prednisone. Your doctor prescribed prednisone, and you know why he prescribed it, but what does it actually do, right? Like, you know you have a condition, but why prednisone? Why do you need the prednisone? That's the question I'm going to answer today. And at the end, I have a special gift for you. I'm Dr. Megan, the prednisone pharmacist, and I am going to start by explaining what prednisone is. So prednisone is a prescription drug, right here. There's a bottle of it, and it mimics a naturally occurring hormone in your body. So when your doctor is giving you prednisone, what they're trying to do is trick your body into thinking you have extra of this really important hormone called cortisol. When that cortisol or hydrocortisone or other different ways that your body moves it around is high, it helps you cope with stress. So in essence, prednisone is coping with stress. There are so many different kinds of stress. I know in America we think, oh, stress is like I have a really stressful job or I have a really stressful relationship. But when I'm talking about stress, I'm talking about what our very distant ancestors would have considered stress. They would have considered stress being, there's a pack of coyotes chasing me, or there's no food to be had anywhere. What am I going to do? How can I cope with this? That's the kind of stress. Hunger, terror, running from a complete enemy like war, famine, those types of things are the stress that prednisone was, and the hormone that it mimics in our body is designed to cope with. Things that are quick and suddenly disappear. When there's a man running after you with an axe, that's what prednisone is for. It's for helping you recover from running away from the tiger or from the axe. Prednisone does this, though, at a cost. If you are recovering from that kind of serious stress, it's doing it by stealing from other places. It's telling your immune system, don't worry about that. You don't need to have an immune system right now. We're focused on recovering from running as fast as we can away from that scary thing. Hey, inflammation, don't worry. I know my muscles are inflamed right now because I've been running a marathon to get away from that thing. And so it turns off your inflammation and your immune system. Those are the two things it does so that you can recover from that incredibly stressful experience of running away. And why would we want this if we're taking prednisone? Well, prednisone is used for a lot of reasons. It can be used for people who have rheumatoid arthritis, people who have kidney problems, people who have lots of different inflammation or immune system problems. I personally took it because my immune system was attacking my platelets, making me bleed to death potentially. So my doctor gave me prednisone to stop the immune system from what it was doing. So we're basically taking what our body naturally does to recover from an incredibly stressful situation, and we're hijacking it. We are raising the dose as high as we can because normally we only have 2.5 to 5 milligrams of the equivalent of prednisone in our body. But this is 20 milligrams. We're getting 10, 20, 1,000 times the dose that our body's normally used to so that it can cope with that stress, so that it has the ability to recover from whatever immune or inflammation problem is going on. And so how does actually this little molecule in here do that? Well, it goes into your body and your body turns it into a thing called prednisolone. And then it goes inside the cell and tells your DNA to change what it's been doing. Instead of sending out one message, it changes the messages that your DNA is sending. So that's how prednisone is working. It sends out different proteins than it normally would. It changes the way your cell interacts with other cells. There are little things around your cell called receptors, and those change for different types of cells, from your muscle cells to your heart cells to your inflammation and immune system cells. They are all being changed because those molecules are going in and changing the way your body reads the DNA. It's pretty miraculous. It really is amazing that they found prednisone and that it can do such a miraculous thing as to change our DNA, the way we're using our DNA, and to tell our body, don't worry about that immune system, just ignore it for a little while. Don't worry about that inflammation, just ignore it. We're gonna turn all that down so you can recover from your condition, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, whether it's a kidney condition, or whether it's so that you can breathe again. Whatever your doctor prescribed it for, it has something to do with mainly those two things, inflammation and your immune system.
How do you take prednisone? What is the right way to take it? Hi, I'm Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist, and I personally had to take prednisone. Plus, I'm a board certified doctor of pharmacy. And so I have special knowledge on how to take prednisone the right way to avoid side effects and get the most out of the drug that you can. So if you are prescribed prednisone, you might be wondering, how am I supposed to take this? I just got this bottle and it says, take this. But how do you actually take it? And what I'm about to tell you might seem counterintuitive or might be surprising to you. So first we need to know is that prednisone is mimicking our body's natural hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is naturally secreted by your body in a daily rhythm where right before sunrise, it's really high and then it goes slowly down throughout the day. And so what we want to do with the prednisone is mimic that as closely as possible. So what we do is we take prednisone all at once, first thing in the morning, with a glass of water. Simple as that. But there's a lot more nuance that I'd like to share. If you want to go a little deeper, keep watching. So your doctor might prescribe prednisone in many different ways. And so what I'm about to tell you, you've got to listen to whatever your doctor said as the number one source of information, because there's an infinite variety of ways a doctor could prescribe it. But typically, you want to take prednisone, all of your pills, all at once. Your doctor might have prescribed 5 pills to take per day, and you're thinking, do I take one with each meal and a couple at bedtime or something? No, you take all of them all at once, first thing in the morning, in one swallow with a glass of water. And that should be fine. And if they went down to 4, so you take 4 all at once, first thing in the morning. And then the next time it was 3, take all of those all at once, first thing in the morning. Here's an example. This is a Medrol dose pack, and the doctors often dispense these for things like bronchitis or a really short-term situation. Prednisone and Medrol dose packs are sister drugs, and doctors can prescribe prednisone dose packs. And so they might look like this, or what your doctor gives you in the prescription bottle might have this same strategy. So I just wanted to show you. There's instructions here that it's like take 2 and then 1, and then don't do these little instructions here that says take 2 tablets at breakfast and 1 after lunch. Follow these instructions down here where it says, unless otherwise instructed or directed by your physician, all 6 tablets in the row on the first day should be taken the day you receive your prescription, even though you may not receive it until late in the day. All 6 tablets may be taken immediately as a single dose. And that's what I'd recommend instead of where it keeps going or may be divided. Don't divide it. There's no reason to divide it. You want to take it all at once, first thing in the morning, whether it's prednisone or Medrol or any other steroid. Generally, you take it all at once, first thing in the morning. Okay? And the reason we do that is first, because it's mimicking cortisol, but second, because the number one side effect that people get from prednisone that they tweet all the time at 2:00 in the morning is insomnia. Prednisone causes more insomnia than most drugs. And so you want to avoid that by taking it early enough in the day so that its half-life, which is somewhere between 1 to 3 hours, it can wear off before bedtime. So that once you go to bed, the prednisone's out of your system and you can sleep restfully. You don't want to have to deal with the horrible insomnia that prednisone causes. So that's how you normally take it. And should you take it with food or without food? And I started by saying, take it all at once, first thing in the morning, and with a glass of water. So the glass of water is the important thing. Just drink water. You probably don't need food. But this is a little controversial subject. When I graduated from pharmacy school, they told everybody that prednisone has to be taken with food. And recent research shows that that's probably not necessarily true. They were trying to avoid the side effect from prednisone that causes GI upset, gastrointestinal bleeding, stomach ulcers, any issues with the gut lining, because they thought it had to do with whether or not a person took prednisone with food. And more recently, they've discovered it's because people are taking things like ibuprofen along with the prednisone, and it might be a drug interaction. So for most people, you can take it with just a tall glass of water, and that's all you need. And then if you have to take ibuprofen or another drug like it, then definitely take prednisone with food. But for most people who don't have gut issues, taking prednisone with a full glass of water is all you need. The real problem we want to avoid is that taking it with food is going to cause. One scientific study said this. I'm just going to read it straight from the article. It says, to mimic the normal diurnal rhythm, one would ideally take prednisolone immediately before waking, which is not possible. Taking prednisolone after breakfast causes an unnecessary delay and does not improve absorption. We would advise taking prednisolone immediately on waking before breakfast to produce a detectable concentration of prednisone as early as possible. The idea is that we want to get prednisone in your system as fast as we possibly can. And if you're waiting until after you're able to eat food with it, that might be too long. And so the best situation I can think of, the best way to take prednisone is to have the pill bottle right next to your bed with a glass of water. And the second you wake up, you roll over, take out your full daily dose, whether that's 1, 2, 5, or 10 tablets, however many your doctor is prescribing, put them in your mouth and drink the water before you're even out of bed. That would be the most ideal situation for taking prednisone, because then you're getting it in your body as quickly as possible and mimicking cortisol because it would have been there before you woke up. It's not possible for you to take it before you wake up, but that would be the most ideal. So that is the right way to take prednisone. If you're wondering about other questions, frequently asked questions about prednisone and how to take it, I'm going to go through a few of those frequently asked questions. First, do I take all three at once or one at every meal? And you take them all three at once and not at every meal. And can you take 3 at a time? Yes, you can take 3 at a time. You can take 5 at a time, whatever your doctor prescribed. And why the heck do medications have so many side effects? That is a great question. Prednisone is a miracle medication. It saved my life and millions of other people's lives. I'm so grateful it exists. However, it caused more side effects for me than I can count. It was a horrible experience taking prednisone. I was grateful for it, and also it made me completely miserable. And so the reason it's doing that is, again, because prednisone is mimicking our natural hormone cortisol. But cortisol is normally secreted at a maximum of the equivalent of prednisone 2.5 milligrams a day. And most people taking prednisone are taking 10, 20, or even 100 times more than your body's naturally occurring cortisol. And so you are 10 or 20 or 100 times causing the side effects in your body. And cortisol is normally released in times of severe stress. It's our stress hormone. It helps us deal with disasters, whether it's a famine or a war. And so it's strategically created by Mother Nature to help us deal with those horrible times and isn't worried about the future. It's worried about right now, survival. That is it. And so it's causing all of these side effects because it's just stealing from parts of your body, and like it's stealing from your muscles, it's stealing from your bones. It's stealing all of these wonderful nutrients your body has stored up so that you can survive right now. And so taking prednisone is doing wonderful things, but it's at a cost. It's kind of like when the Little Mermaid gives up her fishtail and her gorgeous voice so she can get feet. She got her wish, but it came at a cost, right? And so it's the same thing with prednisone. It is a terrible question that you have to ask. Is the benefit greater than the risk? And you can only know that if you know what the benefits are and if you know what the risks are. And you have to know both in order to make that decision. And so I definitely recommend you talk to your doctor if you're wondering what the benefits are, because sometimes they're not worth it. A lot of times people are prescribed prednisone and it's not worth it. And then you also need to know what the risks are. So on your prescription, it might say take 5, and then take 4, and then take 3. And you might be wondering, the treatment starts with a high dose of prednisone. When the symptoms improve, the dosage is lowered. Why? And that is because your body needs you to let it kick back in. So when you took that prednisone, it immediately shut off a system of your body called the HPA axis. It turned off your ability to make cortisol. And so you need to give your body time to recover that system. And if you go cold turkey off of prednisone, that's a big problem. We do not want to go cold turkey. You want to slowly decrease in dose until you're back to closer to the 2.5 milligrams a day. That is what your body normally makes. And you want to follow the taper your doctor prescribes. If you're still not feeling good after you stop taking prednisone, definitely be in touch with your doctor because you might be going through prednisone withdrawals. And I have a whole bunch of videos all about that. And finally, what happens if you do stop taking it? If you stop taking prednisone suddenly, you go cold turkey, it may not give your body the chance to turn back on the HPA axis. And you can actually go into what's called adrenal crisis, and that can be fatal. So do not stop taking it suddenly without your doctor's permission. Some doctors are aware of a horrible side effect you have, and so they may work with you to get off the prednisone safely and quickly, but work that out with your doctor. And generally, if you're only taking 5 to 10 days of prednisone, you don't need to taper. You just take it exactly as your doctor prescribed, and that's all you need. And you don't need to worry about the taper. Anything beyond 10 days, you need to talk to your doctor. 14 days is definitely the max, beyond which you must taper, because by then your HPA axis needs the support of a taper to recover. And you might be wondering, are there side effects of taking prednisone? And what if I'm only taking it for 5 days? Are there any side effects? Yes, there are side effects. Everything from insomnia, which I mentioned, to moon face, weight gain, and redistribution of fat. So you can get a big belly and a big round face. You can get high blood pressure, high blood sugar. You can get eye issues like cataracts and glaucoma. There are up to 150 side effects of prednisone. And these are the ones I personally experienced. So yes, prednisone is amazing and it causes so many side effects we would love to avoid if possible. And that's why you need to download my prednisone checklist. It includes the top 7 mistakes people make while taking prednisone. And so you download it and you'll know exactly how to avoid those mistakes so that you take prednisone the right way and avoid the mistakes that other people commonly make.
When do prednisone side effects start? Hi, I'm Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist, and the type of question I get the most often is when? When do prednisone side effects start? When do they go away? When does it start working? And I'm going to answer the first question. When do prednisone side effects start? And this question is really important because if you're only taking prednisone for a few days, are you going to get any side effects? That's a really big myth doctors perpetuate, and I want to get away first. Is, oh, here's a prescription for prednisone. I'm only giving you a few days, so you won't have any side effects. That's not true. One dose is enough to cause side effects. So don't you believe the doctor or pharmacist or whomever who's like, oh, it's not long enough to cause side effects. That's not remotely true. One dose is enough to cause side effects. So when do specific side effects start? Well, here's a picture of me when I had to take prednisone. These are the side effects I personally experienced, and most of them are very commonly experienced by other people as well. And some of them happened right at the beginning of my personal experience taking prednisone, and others didn't happen for a lot longer. And so I want to go through my personal experience, and it's for the most part similar to most people's experience, and tell you what to expect when. So the first thing is when I took prednisone, that first dose, boy, I had a lot of energy. It was hard because they had me in the hospital and I couldn't, walk around and use up all my energy cleaning my house or something like a lot of people end up doing. I just had to sit there because they were worried I might bleed to death if I accidentally tripped and fell and hit my head or something. So you get a lot of energy, and that can be a wonderful feeling called euphoria and have this energy high, this mood high. And it can also lead to a lack of sleep because everything's just a little bit hyper, a little bit excited, including your sleeping is impaired. Prednisone is actually interfering with your sleep-wake cycle and decreasing the amount of melatonin your body's secreting. And so you have less restful sleep, or some people can't even fall asleep at all. They have such terrible prednisone side effects affecting their sleep. And with all of these side effects, it's really important to consider the dose. Generally, the higher the dose, the worse the side effects. The duration, how long you've been on it. Your DNA. Prednisone is actually affecting your DNA. The study that showed that prednisone affects your circadian rhythm after just one dose showed that it's doing so by affecting so many parts of metabolism and through your DNA. Up to 2/3 of your genes are affected by cortisol that prednisone is mimicking. And so it's very DNA dependent. What your body responds to from prednisone can be completely different than what your sister or even your neighbor across the street would be experiencing, because every single person's genetics are different. And finally, the fourth thing that affects it is the indication, or what you're taking it for. what you're taking it for can definitely affect the side effects because the disease itself might be worsening the side effects. For example, if you're taking prednisone for rheumatoid arthritis when it's affecting your joints and the pain and swelling and inflammation there, that disease itself can worsen some side effects. And so is it the disease or the drug? It can be really hard to decide because they haven't really done lots of good studies. That's an entirely different video. Check it out. But these things do affect when to expect your side effects to happen. So back to my story. First, I had all this high energy and insomnia. Then other people would get anxiety, and potentially the euphoria can be so extreme that it's actually something called steroid psychosis. It's where the mood is so changed that people actually feel psychotic. They may not be in touch with reality, and this is a diagnosis code that psychiatrists can make. It often requires hospitalization and medications and a lot of support. And so if you or your family member is feeling out of control mood and emotions from prednisone, definitely let your doctor know, check into the hospital if you need to, because this can be life-threatening. Then as time goes on, things change. I mentioned that prednisone can affect the metabolism. And at the beginning, for the first few days, it can actually cause a little bit of weight loss. Most people don't notice it or don't experience it, but it's possible that it can cause weight loss. That usually changes over time. Between 2 to 3 weeks, people can start noticing weight gain. And it's two types of weight gain. It's fat redistribution. So it's taking the fat from your arms and legs and moving it to your face and belly, causing moon face and belly weight gain. It can also deposit fat on the back of your neck and back area that they call the buffalo hump. And usually moon face and the weight gain are more delayed, 2 to 3 weeks to 2 to 3 months. And that definitely depends on your dose. The higher the dose, the rounder the face. They used to think that only long-term use of prednisone would affect the immune system or your bones. But recent studies have shown that even 30 days or less of prednisone increases your risk for sepsis. That's a full body, usually fatal infection, and fractures. So breaking your wrist, having compression fractures in your spine, losing height, breaking your hip. All of those are potential side effects from the bone loss. They used to thought, oh, you don't have to worry about that until later. And I personally thought that when I took prednisone, oh, you don't need to worry about the bone loss until much later. But even 30 days or less shows an increased risk for fractures. And the bone loss is worst in the first 3 months of prednisone and other corticosteroid therapy. And it continues long term. You continue losing bone strength and mass as time goes on. And so unless you're only taking 10 to 14 days or less of prednisone, you really need to be paying attention to your bone support. You need to be following all my tips in this video about how to manage the bone loss from prednisone. Prednisone can also cause side effects in your eyes, cataracts, glaucoma, and many other things. And usually those are longer term things from months to years of use. That's usually how long that one takes. And prednisone can cause irreversible damage to your cardiovascular system, your heart. And it is usually a longer term thing, but if it's a really high short term dose, like for example, somebody in the hospital getting really high doses intravenously, doctors need to be monitoring their heart because it can cause arrhythmias where the heart is beating wrong. And those can be fatal, and that can be short term, but is usually more long term. Back to the metabolism, prednisone can lead to high blood sugars. The blood sugar increase can lead to diabetes. Diabetes leads to weight gain, and it's this vicious cycle. The diabetes usually doesn't happen for longer. So that's kind of a longer term side effect that you can anticipate. So I've talked about the general side effects, but then when a person takes prednisone, they usually start high and slowly taper off over time. And somewhere in this taper time, people often reach a point where they get trapped. I call it the taper trap. And this taper trap doesn't happen to everyone. In fact, it probably doesn't. Most people can usually taper off slowly over days to weeks to months and can tolerate it just fine. But some people are more sensitive to the withdrawal of prednisone and can suffer prednisone withdrawal symptoms. So that's the last type of timeline side effect that I wanted to share with you. That tapering off itself can cause its own type of side effects. And I have plenty of videos all about prednisone withdrawal syndrome and how horrible it is. And when those side effects start is really dependent on your ability to taper off. And it's as much of an art as a science. So if you want to know more about what to expect and what you can do to counteract these side effects, click the link below to download my prednisone checklist. It includes my top tips for people taking prednisone and how you can feel like yourself again after taking prednisone. Just click the link below.
Coming off of prednisone and dealing with side effects, you're not alone. Lots of people have side effects when coming off of prednisone. And so I want to share details with you of what you can expect, what red flags to look out for, and ways to overcome them. I'm Dr. Megan, the prednisone pharmacist, and lots of people have asked me about how to come off of prednisone and what side effects to look out for. So let's talk about that. Coming off of prednisone, another way of describing this is tapering off of prednisone or withdrawing from prednisone, or lots of other ways, weaning off of prednisone. Those are all synonymous things. But essentially what we're doing is we're giving our body a chance to have super high doses and then slowly recover as we get off of the prednisone over time. That's because when we take, say, this pill itself, prednisone 20 milligrams, this is almost 10 times what our body naturally makes when it comes to cortisol. Our body is naturally releasing cortisol, a hormone, our stress hormone, our fight or flight, freeze, get out of a disaster hormone. And we make about 2.5 milligrams a day on a normal day. You take prednisone and you just 10 times that to 20 milligrams. And so your body is used to having this much of a receptor for this much of cortisol. But when you 10 times the amount of prednisone, you need to make more receptors to use up that stuff you just gave your body. So it takes your body a little bit of time to build these receptors, but it takes even more time for your body to break them down. So it's not like a light switch that you can just go 20 to 0. Your body has a very intricate and delicate system called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. We'll just call it HPA for short. It's a lot easier to say. The HPA axis is this slow, like a train slowly starting. It needs time to communicate these signals between them. And then as it slowly it can go faster and faster until it's back into gear. All right. But it doesn't just turn on. It needs lots of time to recover. So when you have too many of these receptors, they're called glucocorticoid receptors, and not enough cortisol equivalent from the prednisone, it's as if they're figuratively screaming, "Help! I'm empty! I need food! Feed me now!" And it hurts. Your body expresses that with these coming off side effects. Essentially, it feels like you have the flu, but no respiratory symptoms, no runny nose, no coughing. You have the aches, you have the pain, the joint pain, the bone pain, the muscle pain. You have the fatigue, the dramatic fatigue. You might have nausea. You might have a fever. You might have sleep changes, whether it's you sleep all the time because you're completely exhausted, or you have insomnia and then you just feel exhausted, but you can't sleep. You have weight changes, whether it's dramatic weight loss or suddenly you're having weight gain. Those are all possible side effects of coming off of prednisone. They actually have a fancy term. When we use the term syndrome, it's kind of an umbrella term for a constellation of different symptoms that are related to something happening. So the prednisone withdrawal syndrome are all of those symptoms I just described. Not everybody gets all of them. You might only get fatigue. You might only get muscle pain. You might only get headaches or a fever. But together, they are what you feel when you're withdrawing from prednisone. And it's miserable. You can ask anybody who's tried to withdraw from something their body has become dependent on, whether it's alcohol or heroin or Xanax. Our bodies change in response to having that drug on board all the time. And so you're not addicted to prednisone, but you are dependent on prednisone. In fact, if you don't keep taking prednisone and you don't slowly taper off of prednisone and you go cold turkey, you go straight from 20 to 0 if you've been taking prednisone for more than 10 to 14 days in a year. If you do that, you can put yourself into adrenal crisis, adrenal failure. That can be fatal. Your whole body stops working, your blood pressure drops, your blood sugar drops, your organs start failing. You die. And you do not want that. And so you've got to slowly taper off, give your body the chance to start these systems over again, to slowly break down these glucocorticoid receptors so that the ratio of cortisol and receptor is appropriate, that they are being filled, and that as you slowly drop, you break down these receptors. So that's what it feels like when you're coming off of prednisone. Let me describe in a few people's actual words what it feels like coming off of prednisone. This is how they knew they were going through prednisone withdrawal symptoms. One lady said, "My body is so stiff, especially my legs." Another said, "I have no energy and feel nauseous all the time. I feel awful most of the time. Is it normal to have extreme fatigue some days where I can't do anything?" Another said, "Huge hair loss since dropping doses. I feel very tired and sleep a lot now. Is this normal?" The next person said, "When I dropped, I had an extremely difficult response. It was like the worst of low blood sugar episodes. Fatigue, shakiness, lightheadedness, feeling of being hollow inside, all energy drained out, hot flushes, etc." That is what it really feels like to be going through prednisone withdrawal, those coming off prednisone side effects. And so if you want to know what you can do about that, if you're experiencing these side effects, generally it's kind of frustrating, but there's only really one thing you can do, and it's to go back up to whatever dose wasn't causing those symptoms. For that most recent person, it was going back up to 50 milligrams. For you, it might be going back up to 5 milligrams. Who knows? It's very person dependent. And then I also have a prednisone taper chart that you can use to help you keep track of where you are in this process, of when you had those prednisone withdrawal symptoms, the coming off prednisone side effects appear for you. And know exactly what dose you're at, where to taper next. I give you lots of options of really aggressive tapers to more gentler tapers. And you can choose which one works for you. You can print it out. It's a PDF, it's printable, and it's free. So just click the link below to download the prednisone taper chart now. So what we need to understand is, what is a half-life? A half-life is the time it takes for something to go from 100% down to 50%, to lose half of the amount of whatever it is, whether that's a drug in your body or radiation at a nuclear blast site. How long is it going to take for half of it to disappear? So if you're to take this prednisone 20 milligram tablet at 8 a.m., how long is it going to take for it to drop down to 10 milligrams effectively in your body? Well, the half-life of prednisone is somewhere between 2 to 3 hours, depending on your DNA and your situation. So if you take this much at 8 a.m., it will drop down to 10 milligrams in your body by somewhere between 10 and 11 a.m. So let's just round up to 11. And then this 10 milligrams will drop down to 5 milligrams effectively 3 hours later at 2 p.m. And then 3 hours later, you'll have 2.5 milligrams effective by 5 p.m. And then 1.25 by 8 p.m. And then it's pretty much undetectable at that next time. Essentially, 18 hours after your dose of prednisone, it's mostly gone from your system. For some people, it might be up to 24 hours. But essentially,
it's gone after one day. The drug is gone. So why do you feel so awful after taking prednisone? Even though the molecule of prednisone itself is gone after 18 hours, the effects last much longer. Let me give you an analogy to help understand what I'm about to explain about the side effects. So prednisone is like a tornado. It touches down and it goes through the town. And in the meantime, it knocks over electric poles. It takes a car and deposits it somewhere else. It takes the roof off of something. It breaks the window. It leaves a path of destruction along its wake. How long does it take for a tornado to go through town? 30 seconds, a minute, 30 minutes, an hour? Every tornado is different, right? But eventually the tornado's gone. What is left in its wake? Damage, destruction, changes that don't just undo themselves just because the tornado ended. The dire emergency for the animals and humans is over, right? Like you're not going to be sucked up into a cyclone and disappear, but the damage to the road, like you're not able to drive through it right now, right? Like those things don't just immediately recover. So let's talk about what those damage leftovers are from the prednisone tornado. Prednisone is affecting lots of parts of your body. So the first thing it's impacting is your blood sugar. The impact of one dose of prednisone on your blood sugar can be detected at least 8 hours after that dose. Its anti-inflammatory, usually desired good effects, last 12 to up to 36 hours. So the good effects of prednisone are lasting potentially 3 times longer than the molecules even in your body. Growth suppression. So if a child takes prednisone, it's slowing down their growth, and there's actually detectable height differences in children who take prednisone versus those who don't. And that lasts up to 5 hours. And other hormone and metabolic effects from prednisone can be detected days later. The changes to the circadian rhythm from just one dose of a drug very similar to prednisone called dexamethasone, it completely dysregulates your circadian rhythm, your ability to manage the biological clock and wake up at a normal time and go to sleep at a normal time and get restful sleep at night. That whole thing is completely dysregulated after just one dose. It doesn't suddenly just pop back into place instantly. It takes time to recover from that, to rebuild the pathways that prednisone is blocking or broke down. So what affects how long prednisone stays in your system? Because I told you there's a range. Some studies show that your liver and kidney health may have some impact on it. It's safe to take prednisone whether you have liver impairment or kidney impairment, but potentially it might last longer in your body if you're not breaking it down or getting rid of it as fast. Your body fat and body size might impact how long prednisone lasts in your body. Your age and your gender, whether or not you took it with food may potentially make a difference. And then your genes, the DNA, the enzymes that break prednisone down are different for every single person. And so some people clear the drug fast and have fewer side effects. Other people, it may stay in the system longer. And so you have more chance for more side effects, more damage to occur. So this explains why prednisone is dosed, the timing that it's normally taken. For most people, doctors prescribe prednisone to be taken first thing in the morning, and they often say with food and water. And you only take it once a day. And that's because that allows it to mimic your body's natural release of cortisol from your HPA axis. It normally starts releasing it at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it gets stronger and stronger and stronger closer to dawn. And right at dawn, that's when your body starts saying, okay, time to wake up, time to get energy, time to turn on the metabolism, time to just get the systems going. And that's cortisol. Cortisol is the molecule that does that. And prednisone's mimicking it. So it makes sense to give it at the time your body would normally be releasing it. And then the reason people often don't take it at night is because that waking up hormone is not a great idea to be taking when you're trying to be going to sleep and getting restful sleep, right? It can worsen insomnia, weight gain, and lead to worse side effects. But it's possible that your doctor could prescribe it at night or prescribe it every other day. Those are possible things that a doctor could do. And that might be because of the condition you're taking it for. Some conditions have worse symptoms in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. And so you'll want to have the prednisone to kick in by the time you're waking up, when you normally have pain like in your shoulders for PMR or your wrists for rheumatoid arthritis. So does prednisone build up in your system? Nope. Some drugs, the more you take it, the more it builds up and you reach this kind of steady state. But prednisone isn't one of those. It is completely gone, normally within 24 hours of taking it. But like I said, its effects, both the good ones and the bad ones, can last for days or even weeks. So the real answer to your question is, it doesn't matter how long prednisone stays in your system. What really matters is how long it acts on your system and how long it takes your body to recover from taking prednisone. And so if you're wondering my best tips for what you can do to minimize the side effects to help you recover quicker, I have a prednisone checklist. It goes through the top side effects and what you can do to counteract them. It includes the top 7 mistakes to avoid and my 15 tips to feel like yourself again while taking prednisone. So just click the link below to download the prednisone checklist so you know exactly how to recover from taking prednisone. How long do prednisone side effects last? Important question if you're prescribed prednisone and you want to know, when is this going to stop making me feel miserable? I had to take prednisone for 9 months, and it was one of the most horrific experiences of my life. At that time, I had no idea how long I would be on it, or when it would finally end, or when I would finally stop feeling these side effects. Asking this question makes perfect sense. So I want to give you some reassurance and some mindset to how to deal with this, because as much as it is a physical experience you're undergoing, it's also a little bit of a psychological experience of not psyching yourself out. So before I get into the actual details of what you're going to experience potentially while taking prednisone, I wanted to help with that mindset. And this comes from an amazing book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks about how businesses succeed and fail, how they can become great companies. And he tells the story of Admiral Stockdale. That means he was like one of the leaders in the Navy during World War II. He was imprisoned in a Japanese prisoner of war camp and tortured 20 times. He went through a horrific experience and even disfigured his own face so he wouldn't look like a healthy prisoner when he was being interviewed for television. So he was interviewed by Jim Collins, and what he said reminded me so much of taking prednisone, because I feel that one of the words that the transcriptions of my videos often thinks that prednisone is prisoner. Prednisone, prisoner. And so I feel like taking prednisone is not in any way being a prisoner of war, but it is a prisoner of this pill. So I wanted to use his perspective to help us understand how to survive this special kind of torture we undergo. So he said, Stockdale was limping and arc swinging his stiff leg that had never fully recovered from repeated torture. Finally, after about 100 meters of silence, I asked, who didn't make it out of the prisoner of war camp? Oh, that's easy, he said. The optimists. The optimists? I don't understand, I said, now completely confused, given what he'd said 100 meters earlier. The optimists. Oh, they were the ones who said, we're gonna be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they'd say, we're going to be out by Easter. And Easter would come and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving. And then it would be Christmas again. And they died of a broken heart. Another long pause and more walking. Then he turned to me and said, this is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose. With the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. To this day, I carry a mental image of Stockdale admonishing the optimists, we're not getting out by Christmas, deal with it. So I feel that prednisone is like being in a prisoner of war camp. You might be stuck in there for the rest of your life. You might be released early. You don't know when. You don't know when the side effects are going to stop. You don't know when you're going to be able to stop taking the medication for a lot of people. Some people do. But if you want to know when the side effects are going to stop, how long do they last? Let's get into some of the worst side effects, the ones I'm often asked questions about, and we'll go through those. In general, the principle is that how long the side effects last depends on several things. It depends on your dose, because the higher the dose, the worse the side effects. The duration, how long you take the prednisone, because some of those side effects can be permanent. And then your DNA, who you are, because prednisone is affecting up to 2/3 of your DNA. The three most common questions I get, the most heartfelt, anguished, help me questions are, when is this anxiety going to go away? This often happens when somebody takes prednisone or another similar drug like methylprednisolone or dexamethasone at a pretty high dose for a short-term amount of time. And then it suddenly causes disabling, miserable anxiety. Person was otherwise mentally healthy and then suddenly cannot even handle watching TV, leaving their house, or doing anything. Everything is just too overstimulating and it causing anxiety. Other mental health side effects include paranoia, emotional disturbances, psychosis, depression. Basically, any mental condition can be worsened by prednisone or can appear because of prednisone. And typically, for most of these, the higher the dose, the worse the side effect. So as you come down in dose, it usually goes away. And for that first one I was talking about, that anxiety, it can affect you even after prednisone is stopped. And it usually goes away in about 3 weeks, sometimes about 3 months. I've heard from other people that it's been a year. It's really individual. It's really that DNA that I was talking about that is the deciding factor of when it goes away. But typically with most mental health side effects, it goes down as the dose goes down and it disappears as the dose is gone. That's how most of them work. But what I want you to remember when it comes to prednisone and the mood changes it can inflict upon us is it's not you. It's the drug. This is a side effect. You are not crazy. The drug is doing something to you. It feels like psychological torture, right? Because it basically is. Prednisone is its own special kind of torture. Okay, the second type of side effect people want to understand is, when is my adrenal system going to recover? So prednisone is affecting the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your stress hormone axis, your cortisol releasing system, the HPA axis. And this system works by sending messages back to tell the next person to do their job. And this message is not being sent back. The messenger is not being sent. So you essentially are turning off your ability to make cortisol. And it takes a while to turn back on. It's not a light switch that suddenly you stop taking prednisone and it turns back on. It's more like a sunrise that it slowly gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter as time goes on. And for every person, the DNA is really important to take into account here, and how long you took it. If you only take prednisone for between 5 to 10 days, chances are this happens a lot faster than if you take prednisone for 5 to 10 months or even years. It's going to take longer to recover. One person had the adage that however long you took the prednisone is how long it's going to take to recover. I don't fully agree with that, because I know there are some people who could take prednisone for a whole year and within a week their adrenal system can turn back on. Others can take prednisone for a whole year and may never recover, and that's called adrenal insufficiency. It just takes too long or doesn't ever turn back on. And essentially, your body has lost the ability to make cortisol on its own. And for those 1 to 10%, we don't even really know how many people, you cannot make cortisol. And so you have to replace it by continuing to take prednisone or hydrocortisone or another steroid basically for the rest of your life, unfortunately. And then there's a related thing, and that's withdrawal. So if you taper too quickly off of prednisone, then you might get withdrawal symptoms. Just like if you were to be an alcoholic and suddenly go cold turkey off of alcohol, you'd go through alcohol withdrawal, right? Your body has gotten used to being on prednisone. And so going off of it causes withdrawal symptoms such as joint pain, dramatic fatigue, achiness, basically flu-like symptoms. And it can be hard to differentiate that between being actually ill. So you have to talk to your doctor. But if you do, then you need to go back on the lowest effective dose, wherever you weren't feeling that yucky feeling. And then the third type of question I often get is, when will my moon face go away? And related, when will this weight gain stop, or when will I lose the weight that prednisone made me gain? And these are definitely related to the 3Ds, the dose, duration, and your DNA. The dose is the most important. The higher the dose, the worse the moon face, the rounder the face. Typically at 60 milligrams of prednisone, most people are getting moon face. Whereas at 6 milligrams of prednisone, it's a lot less common to have moon face. But if you've been on prednisone for a long time, it's more likely to have moon face, even if you're at a lower dose, say between 10 to 15 milligrams. So it's a combination of the dose and the duration, essentially the amount of milligrams you're exposed to over time. And then your DNA. Typically, moon face is worse for women who are younger and those who are on a higher dose. And so it's not fair that typically the people who need prednisone are often women. So we're getting moon face more likely than men. But it definitely still happens to men. And then the weight gain. Unfortunately, the weight gain, like my doctor told me, is real. And it's not like having a baby and suddenly you stop taking prednisone or you give birth to the baby and then the weight just disappears. It's not like that. It's real weight gain, unless it's water weight gain. And that is a little easier to lose because prednisone messes with your water and kidney metabolism. And so once the kidneys kick back in, you lose that water weight. But the fat redistribution, the belly, takes a little longer to lose, unfortunately. And every person's different, and you got to do what it takes for you to lose weight, whether that's keto diet, intermittent fasting, a whole food plant-based diet, whatever works for you. Or as the doctors at the Harvard Medical School seminar I attended suggested, GLP-1 agonists like Wegovy and Zepbound are appropriate to help you lose your prednisone weight gain. They are okay to take alongside prednisone or after taking prednisone. So which side effects don't go away? These include anything that causes permanent damage. So heart disease, the changes, if you got a heart disease progression, for example, you had a stroke, that damage is permanent. You had a heart attack, that damage is permanent. You had an arrhythmia start. Maybe it's going to have less, but the damage, the progression of heart disease doesn't just go away. If you got high blood pressure while on prednisone, that goes away once you stop taking it. But the damage from the high blood pressure and high cholesterol caused by the prednisone, that is irreversible. It's damage. Then your bones. Prednisone is causing osteoporosis and other bone loss, and that is irreversible. The loss of those nutrients from your bones just doesn't come back. You need to be taking precautions while on prednisone to minimize the loss. And then your eyes. If the high blood pressure inside your eye, called glaucoma, leads to eye damage, like optic nerve damage leading to blindness, that's irreversible. There's nothing you can do about it. If prednisone causes cataracts, like clouding of your lenses, that's permanent. You can get a lens replacement, cataract surgery, but the damage is done. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And finally, I wanted to conclude with some of Admiral Stockdale's words of wisdom for how to deal with the torture that is being on prednisone. And this is what Jim Collins said. How did he actually deal with this? He said, "I never lost faith in the story," he said when I asked him. "I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life," which, in retrospect, I would not trade. I feel the same way about my disease, that it was terrible. It was scary. It was miserable having this disease and having to take prednisone for it, thinking I might die and leave my children motherless. But it has turned into the defining event of my life. I have helped millions of people taking prednisone now through this YouTube channel and my blog. And it can be that way for you too. If you're having to take prednisone, let this turn into the defining event of your life that you would not trade. Help others who are going through hard things because of what you learned while taking prednisone. I hope this helps you to overcome that psychological battle that you have to deal with when you're taking prednisone. So what can you do? Well, the doctors who prescribe prednisone the most, the rheumatologists, are worried about this, and they actually created a guideline to help all of the doctors know how to help their patients like you and me. And their guideline is called Glucocorticoid-Induced Osteoporosis Guideline, created by the American College of Rheumatology. And in it, they recommend several things to, for example, help prevent osteoporosis from leading to broken bones. First, they recommend quitting smoking. Second, eating a diet that is rich in calcium and vitamin D. Third, supplementing calcium and vitamin D if you can't, and measuring your vitamin D to make sure it's in the appropriate range. Fourth, quitting alcohol, because both smoking and alcohol can worsen the bone loss caused by prednisone. So those are some things that you can do to minimize the complications from prednisone. I was personally worried about this when I was taking prednisone. I was so worried that with my family history of osteoporosis, that I was going to turn into my little grandma who'd shrunk in height. And I didn't want that. And so I did something that I never thought I would do when I was in pharmacy school, because in pharmacy school, they told us that dietary supplements are a huge waste of money and you might as well just flush the money down the toilet that you spend on it for the good it will do. Then I had to take prednisone. And I realized that if the doctors who prescribe prednisone the most have all of these studies supporting the need for calcium and vitamin D supplementation, then we really need it. And then I found out that it wasn't just calcium and vitamin D that prednisone's stealing, it's also other nutrients like chromium. That's what's leading to the blood sugar changes that can lead to diabetes and other complications of diabetes like blindness and heart disease. And I was mind blown when I read a study that said taking chromium picolinate can reverse diabetes caused by prednisone. It was so stunning that at least those three nutrients plus others are being stolen by prednisone, leading to this damage. And so some things that you can do to minimize how long the side effects are going to last and potentially minimize how permanent and irreversible they are is supplementing the nutrients that prednisone is stealing. And so I invented Nutrinize Zone, the first and only supplement for people on prednisone. It comes in a morning and a bedtime bottle, so it has enough calcium, vitamin E, chromium, and other nutrients to support you, to give back the nutrients prednisone steals. The morning bottle also helps support your metabolism, and the bedtime bottle also helps support your sleep by giving back the nutrients that prednisone steals that makes it hard for you to get restful sleep. So you can just go to nutrinize.com to get Nutrinize today to help you feel like yourself again while taking prednisone.
When will my immune system recover after taking prednisone? Hi, I'm Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist, and this is a great question to ask because prednisone is often prescribed as an immunosuppressant. I was personally prescribed it for an autoimmune condition because my immune system was attacking my platelets. So my doctor gave me prednisone and I'm still here today. I didn't bleed to death. It literally saved my life and I'm so grateful for that. But it comes at a price. It is weakening your immune system. So how long does prednisone weaken your immune system? I have the 5 Ds of how prednisone weakens our immune system. First is your disease. Your disease itself, for which you are taking prednisone, can weaken your immune system. And taking prednisone with a disease like rheumatoid arthritis can do complicated things to your immune system. And so that affects how long your weakening lasts. Number 2 is your DNA. Prednisone can affect so much of your DNA. I was completely blown away when I read a textbook saying that it can affect up to 2/3 of your genes.
And so your genes are different than my genes, and so your DNA is affected differently by how prednisone is affecting your immune system. Number 3, and most important, is your dose of prednisone. Whether it's 2.5, 40, or 200, anywhere in that range, your immune system being weakened is different, and how long your immune system takes to recover is different. So 2.5 milligrams is enough to suppress your immune system after getting a kidney transplant. People are prescribed that to stop their immune system from attacking their new kidney. So 2.5 is enough to affect your immune system. But 40 and above is where the big problem starts, where immune system is immunosuppressed the most. And so above 40 milligrams, you're looking at much higher risks of infections like sepsis, of reactivation of viral infections like the chickenpox that you got as a child can reactivate as herpes zoster shingles as an adult, or fungal infections like yeast infections. And so those are possibilities. But the most important definition is from the CDC. And they said that 20 milligrams is kind of the cutoff. If you're taking 20 milligrams and above for 14 days or longer, then you are substantially immunosuppressed. Below that, then maybe not as substantially immunosuppressed, and so you don't have to take such drastic measures when it comes to vaccines, but you should definitely work with your doctor because it's more nuanced at that point. But 20 milligrams and above is when the CDC considers that you have suppression of your immune system. Number 4, a factor that's weakening your immune system is other drugs. So most people know that they're taking an immunosuppressive drug like hydroxychloroquine or sulfasalazine or other drugs that can affect their immune system, but lots of other drugs you don't even know can affect your immune system too, like statins, the most commonly prescribed drug for high blood pressure. They can have a little bit of effect on your immune system too. So those things can continue to keep the weakening caused by prednisone of your immune system to be delayed. And number 5 is the decade. So how old you are, what year you were born. So if you're in your first decade, your immune system is fantastic, working super fast to get rid of all of those childhood infections. Whereas those in their 7th, 8th, and 9th decades have slower immune systems. And so this affects how long prednisone is weakening your immune system. So what can you do about it? Well, what's important to note is that prednisone is causing this weakening immune system to many different types of cells, from your T cells to your B cells to your eosinophils. For example, if you take prednisone, even one dose, it completely decimates your eosinophil population. Like if you get your blood tested the day before and the day after you take prednisone, you had some eosinophils, now you have 0. And so it's affecting your entire immune system. And one way they can measure the recovery time of how long prednisone will weaken your immune system is using immunoglobulins. Try saying that 10 times fast. Immunoglobulins, IgG, that's immunoglobulin G, IgA, IgM, are all affected a little differently. IgM is not affected by prednisone, so that's cool. But IgA and IgG, they've done tests to see how long doses cause lower numbers. And so for IgG, one study showed that it was weeks to months before it recovered. Another study showed it was a month before the IgG was back to normal. IgA, for the tests that they've done, shows 6 to 8 weeks. So your immune system is weakened for somewhere between 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what type of the immune system we're talking about. Another site called UpToDate, which is the most premier medical reference that doctors consult, it says parts of the immune system are affected for weeks, months, or even up to a year. So it all depends on those 5 Ds I mentioned earlier, but some things are affected for up to a year after taking prednisone. And what's happening is prednisone is actually stealing things from your body and making it harder for your immune system to recover. So if you want to give your body the best result it can to be able to recover after taking prednisone, then you need to give back what prednisone has been stealing.
For example, prednisone steals vitamin C and zinc and other factors that your body needs to build a proper response to threats to the immune system. And if you're not giving them back and in the right quantity at the right time of day, you might not be giving your immune system what it needs to fully recover. And it will continue to stay weak. And so if you want to know the best source of vitamin C, zinc, and other nutrients that prednisone is depleting, just click the link below and I'll send you exactly what you need while taking prednisone.
One of the biggest concerns people mentioned in my survey with 250 responses was bone loss. People on prednisone are so concerned about bone loss, and that's for good reason. And the reason I did this survey was because I was heading to Harvard Medical School for a seminar. And at this seminar, a professor at Harvard gave a presentation about preventing osteoporosis. So I was thrilled that I could answer so many of these questions for you. So here are some of the questions people asked, and then I will get to Dr. Naomi Patel's answers. First question is, now that I've tapered off, will my hair and bone conditions improve? Another is, at what dose is prednisone most damaging to my organs, bones, and blood? What is in this medicine that attacks the bones? What's the best way to control side effects? How to minimize muscle and bone loss? What can be done to reduce the negative impact on bones and skeletal muscles? What can I do to help while on prednisone for bone loss? And so many more. So I'd like to focus on that as the theme is what can I do to help while on prednisone for bone loss? So let's cover what Dr. Patel taught us. At what dose is prednisone most damaging to the bones? The professor at Harvard explained that doses over 7.5 milligrams, especially for long periods of time, significantly increase the risk for osteoporosis, fractures, and other organ damage. But here's the kicker. Even lower doses, less than 7.5 milligrams, can cause harm, especially if taken for a long time. It's not just about the dose. It's also about the duration of time. The longer you're on prednisone, the higher the risk. The highest risk is after about 3 months, and the risk is still there at least 12 months. Another one said, I'm only 39 and already have osteoporosis from years of prednisone for lupus. Yes, even young people can get osteoporosis. Another one said, what is in prednisone that attacks the bones? The Harvard professor explained. First, prednisone increases the activity of cells that break down bone. These are called osteoclasts. So it's accelerating the breaking down of bones. That's the first way. The second way is it suppresses or blocks cells that are the builders of bones called osteoblasts. Blasts, builders, both start with B. That's how you can tell the difference. And so you're breaking them down and you're not building them up fast enough. It's the combination of those two. And then number 3, it's reducing calcium absorption in your gut. So your body pulls calcium from your bones instead to keep the right balance in your blood. So basically a normal diet doesn't have enough calcium because you're just not absorbing enough calcium. You're slowing down the absorption. So what can you do to fight back? Well, Dr. Patel quoted the guideline for glucocorticoid-induced osteoporosis. This was created by rheumatologists across the world. Their expertise to see all the things that you can do to minimize your risk. First, they said to quit smoking. That increases your risks for osteoporosis. Second, minimize or stop drinking alcohol. That also worsens bone loss. Third is to take calcium and vitamin D. So something like Nutrinized Zone has calcium and vitamin D in it. In addition to things like vitamin K2 and magnesium, you have to be supplementing because you can't get enough from just your diet alone. Fourth, do weight-bearing exercises like walking or resistance training. These have shown benefits for people with arthritis and arteritis. Lots of different types of inflammation have shown fantastic benefits from exercise. Things like reduced inflammation. So often for diseases like polymyalgia rheumatica, they'll measure blood markers of inflammation like the CRP, the C-reactive protein, or the ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate. And those are usually less in people who exercise than in those who don't. Exercise has been shown to decrease blood pressure, whereas prednisone increases blood pressure. So you're directly fighting against that side effect. And it decreases your heart disease risk. Prednisone can increase your heart disease risk from 2 to 4 times, depending on what study you're looking at. And finally, it improves your quality of life. Instead of suffering prednisone side effects, you're finding ways to deal with it. I'd like to throw another one out there that people on prednisone often feel kind of like a wound up toy that just needs to let the energy out. And exercise is a really good way to let out the anxiety, to let out that cooped up feeling, that anxiousness that prednisone just kind of gives you, the jitteriness. Moving your body, just walking, can be so powerful in helping to release that pent up tension to improve your mood. So what if you already have osteoporosis? What can you do? Well, they mentioned a few medications, and it depends on your risk for complications. And they rank you based on low risk to high risk to very high risk. And there are different treatments options, and things like bisphosphonates, like Fosamax, are basically a great option for most people. Now, if you're wondering, oh, aren't bisphosphonates so dangerous and horrible? Prednisone is the most dangerous. And so if you're taking another medication with risks, definitely, they are less risky than prednisone. And if it were me, I would be taking Fosamax or another bisphosphonate to prevent those complications. Osteoporosis runs in my family. I don't want to get it. I don't want to shrink. I don't want to have pain in my back. I don't want to break any more bones. And they have even newer treatments. So definitely talk to your doctor about it. And get that risk assessment done to see your specific risk, because it depends on your risk, which treatments are worth it for you. So get a DEXA scan, talk to your doctor about that, and use the calculator to see it's called FRAX, F-R-A-X, to see what your risk for osteoporosis is. Taking prednisone increases your risk by a lot. And then if you're someone who is white, female, postmenopausal, a low weight, and many other factors, your risks just keep climbing. And so you can use that calculator to see what your personal risks are. Okay, so to summarize, these are the words of the Harvard professor. I'm just going to read them. For all individuals on glucocorticoids, supplemental calcium, vitamin D, weight-bearing exercise, and avoidance of smoking and excessive alcohol is encouraged. For those at very high risk, and that includes anyone greater than or equal to 30 milligrams of prednisone for 30 days, consider anabolic agents. So getting prescription medication that's even more intense than bisphosphonates. And if you're wondering, is there anything else I should be doing to prevent complications? Because it's not just osteoporosis, it's that heart disease, it's diabetes, and so many other, up to 150 side effects are attributed to prednisone. So if you want to know what else can you possibly do to minimize your risk for side effects, just click the link below to download my prednisone checklist. It includes everything we've talked about today and so much more. So you know exactly what to do to minimize your risks for complications, to make every single milligram matter, and to make it so that you're doing all that you can do to keep your body as healthy as possible while taking prednisone. Just click the link below to download the prednisone checklist now. How do you recover from long-term prednisone use? A YouTube commenter recently asked this question, so I'm making this video in response. And so here is what the commenter asked. Thank you. It took me 12 years and a change of search engines to get facts on the action of this drug. Now I'm off prednisone, but I have a swollen body and still likely leptin and insulin resistance. I fear going on reduced calorie intake because I have loss of muscle and tissue. I was on a puffer for 12 years for asthma, and it got worse and worse. Now off it and gradually less asthmatic. Would you talk on recovery of mind, prefrontal cortex, leptin and insulin resistance? In Australia, Pharmacist said zero, no alternative. Doctor laughed at me when I have things like Cushing's. No doctor helped, no pharmacist. Finally, I found online and got a DHE test, managed to get Intel as a preventer of asthma. but it's 18 months since prednisone and I still don't sleep properly. Still fat belly and moon face. Thank you. Please talk about recovery. So let's talk about recovery from prednisone. In this video, I'll talk about how prednisone affects your body, including leptin and insulin resistance and other complications, why recovery can take so long, and practical steps you can take to help yourself recover. So prednisone is causing difficulty recovering because it's mimicking our body's naturally occurring hormone cortisol. Cortisol is amazing at helping with inflammation, with autoimmune conditions. It saved my life, but it can affect up to 2/3 of the genes in our body. And so it can mess up 2/3 of the things that our genes do in our body. They can all be affected. So regarding the things you mentioned, let's first talk about metabolism. Prednisone is actually named after, the class of drugs is named after what it does to the metabolism. It causes high blood glucose, glucocorticoids, glucose, sugar. And one of the ways it does this is by changing other hormones. Leptin is a hormone that helps regulate hunger and fat storage, and insulin is a hormone that helps control blood sugar. Long-term prednisone can lead to leptin resistance, meaning your body has trouble regulating fat storage, particularly in the belly area. As we all know, with the big pregnant prednisone belly and the round moon face. Prednisone also causes insulin resistance, which can lead to high blood sugar and make it harder to lose weight, even with diet changes. Next, you mentioned muscle loss and tissue wasting. Prednisone encourages a process of breaking down tissue called catabolism and promoting fat storage instead. This is why you may have lost muscle and feel weaker. And then you also mentioned the mind and the prefrontal cortex. Cortisol and prednisone can impact your brain, especially the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. And that prefrontal cortex is the adult of our brain. It's responsible for decision-making, concentration, and emotional regulation. This is why many people on prednisone struggle with brain fog, depression, or trouble sleeping. Cortisol is supposed to be low at night. Melatonin is supposed to be high at night. And prednisone is making it so that neither of those are true. Prednisone is suppressing our ability to make melatonin, and so we have trouble sleeping as well. And this can last even months after stopping the medication. The truth is, recovering after taking prednisone can take a long time. For some people, it's a few days, others it's a few weeks. For many, it's a few months or even years. One adage is, as long as you took prednisone is how long you'll need to recover from prednisone. I don't think that's quite true, but there's a little bit of, it kind of feels accurate in a way. But here's why you need to give your body time. It takes time to rebalance the system that prednisone stopped working. The HPA axis, the two places in your brain and the place on top of your kidney, those three things communicate to make cortisol naturally, and taking prednisone turned off that system. So you need to give it time to wake up. It's been in deep sleep. It's been shrunk down to the minimal amount until you need it to work again. And for some people, it turns on in a few days or a few weeks, but others, it takes a very long time. Hormonal and metabolic changes from insulin and leptin resistance also take time to rebalance. This is why belly fat, weight gain, and swelling can persist even after you've stopped prednisone. And then the tissue repair, the muscle loss, and the tissue loss from prednisone doesn't just heal overnight. It requires consistent effort with good nutrition, movement, and rest. And then the mental health recovery. The effects of prednisone on your brain and mood can also linger as your cortisol levels stabilize. The good news is that recovery is possible. Here are some steps that you can take to rebuild your health. First, let's talk about your muscle. You might need to get a dietitian or a personal trainer or something, but without them, you can eat a diet rich in good proteins. Consider resistance training or light strength exercises to slowly rebuild muscle. Start small and work with a physical therapist if needed. I love my physical therapist. So, ways to support your metabolism. Like you mentioned, don't do extreme calorie restriction. I don't think that would be a good strategy to help you recover from prednisone when you've already lost so much muscle, bone, and other tissues. You want to focus on a balanced diet with proteins, healthy fats, fruits, and vegetables. Stabilize your blood sugar by eating small meals throughout the day. Once you're off prednisone, you can take supplements to potentially reduce inflammation naturally. Things like turmeric, omega-3s, antioxidants, eating leafy greens, eating fish and seeds that are good sources of omega-3s. Definitely limit processed foods and sugar, which can worsen inflammation. If you're concerned about your hormones like leptin and insulin, then definitely get it checked out by a doctor. Ask to get your blood tested to help them find where the problem is, and then get medications if you need to balance your blood sugar. Supplements like vitamin D, magnesium, or ashwagandha may help stabilize your adrenal during recovery, but definitely work that out with your doctor. Make sure it's safe for you, because ashwagandha is not a good option. Turmeric is not a good option while on prednisone, but maybe after it is. Sleep is vital while recovering from prednisone. I know it's tricky because of how prednisone has messed up your sleep-wake cycle, but having a consistent bedtime routine and avoiding screens for an hour or two before bed, natural sleep aids like magnesium and melatonin make sense because prednisone suppresses your ability to make melatonin. Magnesium helps you build melatonin. I have a great option here that I invented myself, Nutrinize Zone. It has a bedtime bottle that has both magnesium and melatonin. It has other nutrients to support your metabolism during recovery, and others to help build back up your bones from what prednisone has done, stealing all of those nutrients, leading to all that muscle loss, tissue loss, bone loss. Other things that can help with your mental health include meditation, mindfulness, yoga, deep breathing exercises, getting a therapist, maybe even going on a medication. And supplements like omega-3s can really support brain health. So keep up advocating for yourself, researching to understand your body, what it's going through, so that you can do all that you can to support yourself during recovery. I'm sorry Nutrinize isn't available in Australia. What you could do is look up the ingredients and see if you can find somebody who can provide those for you. It won't be as easy and convenient with just 2 in the morning and 2 at bedtime. It'll probably cost way more. You'll have to take way more capsules, but at least you'll be getting the support you need to help you recover from taking prednisone. And for those in the United States, you can find this at nutrinize.com or on Amazon.
2 drugs interacting with each other. That's called a drug-drug interaction. I'm Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist, and I'm here today to talk to you about drug interactions with prednisone and give you 5 ways to help avoid them. How to minimize prednisone side effects by avoiding side effects from drug interactions. First of all, prednisone is an amazing drug. It can do miraculous things, but in order to do its job, it has to go through your body. And one of the things that happens is your liver has to break it down from prednisone into prednisolone. That means your body is using your liver to make this drug work for you. That's how the drug interactions happen. Because prednisone is being broken down by the liver, we have to be careful with other drugs that are broken down by the liver because they might be broken down in the same way. So first of all, which drugs are a problem? Which drugs have a drug interaction with prednisone? First of all, we have things I mentioned with the liver. So ketoconazole, it's an antifungal drug. If you're having a terrible fungal reaction and you're on prednisone, then that's a drug interaction. Anticoagulants like warfarin, it can make your numbers go up or down, make you have a higher bleeding risk or a higher clotting risk. Things like that can happen because those drugs are broken down by your liver. What about other side effects that could be caused by a drug interaction? So one of the side effects I was always taught in pharmacy school that you should even warn people about, you should always tell people to take prednisone with food to stop the peptic ulcer issues. Well, guess what? They've recently discovered that the taking it with food thing didn't really matter so much as, guess what? Not taking the prednisone with certain drugs. And do you know which drugs those were? and other anti-inflammatories. So prednisone is an anti-inflammatory, and there are other drugs called NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Things like ibuprofen, which is also known as Motrin, Celebrex, which is also known as celecoxib, naproxen, piroxicam, meloxicam. Those are all drugs that cause your GI tract to have problems. The combination of the prednisone and these other anti-inflammatory drugs is just too much. Let me read you a statistic really quick. It says that using prednisone, it means you have a twofold increased risk of a side effect in your GI tract when you're taking NSAIDs. It's compared to people who just use NSAIDs alone. So basically that's saying you have a 2 times greater risk of having problems somewhere between your mouth and the other end if you're using prednisone with NSAIDs like ibuprofen versus if you only use ibuprofen. And then here's the real killer. The use of NSAIDs plus prednisone or other glucocorticoids is associated with a 4-fold increased risk of side effects in the GI tract compared with not using either drug. So if a person is taking 0 anti-inflammatories, they have a 4 times greater risk if they use prednisone and ibuprofen together, or prednisone and Celebrex, or prednisone and naproxen, or whatever NSAID it is. And that's true for aspirin too. Let me see what this says right here. The aspirin, the levels of aspirin go up when you take aspirin plus prednisone. So you have to be really careful with those. So if you are prescribed prednisone, then you need to talk to your doctor about whether or not to continue aspirin. All right, so I promised you some tips about how to cope with these side effects. And I also wanted to give you a little bonus here that I didn't mention. So did you know that food is medicine? That means herbs are medicine and vitamins are medicine. All of those things you put in your mouth that affect your health, they're medicine. So we need to be careful too with herbs and things like that we take along with prednisone. So one of the things we need to be careful with is St. John's wort. And I could totally see somebody feeling depressed after taking prednisone and taking St. John's wort to cope. And that would be a terrible idea. That is a major drug interaction. Do not ever take St. John's wort with prednisone. Other things that can affect prednisone include alfalfa and licorice. And I can see licorice happening quite a bit because a lot of people think, oh, prednisone is depleting my adrenals, so let me give myself an adrenal support supplement. And licorice is one of the main ingredients in adrenal support supplements, and it basically is, they're counteracting each other. So you just don't want to start licorice when you're on high dose prednisone and you need it to do its job. I'm still out on whether you can do the licorice later on, lower in doses. We'll get back to you on that one. So the tips I promised, the 5 tips, the 5 ways to minimize prednisone side effects by coping with drug interactions. Okay, so first of all is timing. Now the timing would be to not take certain things at the same time as other drugs. So for an example, everybody on prednisone should be taking calcium and vitamin D, but calcium can interact with a lot of things because it's an ion. It's got 2 little plus signs next to it in the chemical name. It will bind other drugs. It'll make it so that they're blocked so that your body doesn't even absorb them. It'll just go in there and say, hey, I've filled the spot. And so calcium should not ever be taken at the same time as thyroid medicines like levothyroxine or iron because they'll block each other. They'll just get in the way of each other's absorption, which is another reason you never want to take a multivitamin that has calcium and iron in it because they're just blocking each other's absorption. So the timing would be take the calcium differently from the thyroid. You could give it at least a half an hour, if not an hour in between. There's not really a problem with taking your prednisone with your thyroid medicine, though. They should be fine together since they're both taken first thing in the morning. All right, so the first one was timing. The second one is to stop taking the drug that is less needed. So going back to our example of taking ibuprofen with prednisone, since they are doing very similar things. They're both anti-inflammatory. They're both pretty much giving you pain relief from like joint pain and things like that. Then consider stopping the ibuprofen while you're on prednisone. That's a possibility. Always talk to your doctor before you stop any drug. But that's one way to cope. And so that can happen with other side effects, other drugs that you're taking. You can stop the one that's less important. And you can go through with your pharmacist and your doctor which are the very most important and which ones you can stop taking. We call that deprescribing. All right. The third one is to switch to a drug metabolized differently. So I was mentioning that the prednisone goes through your body and then has to be activated by your liver. And so if you are on other drugs that are using the liver to break them down, then you can switch to something that maybe is broken down by your kidneys. So for example, there's a whole bunch of drugs for depression. Like there's a whole class of drugs and they're all very similar. They all work almost the exact same way, but some of them are broken down by different parts of the body. And so if you use one that is broken down by a certain enzyme in the liver instead of one that's broken down by another, that's one way to cope. And then back to prednisone itself, one way to cope with timing and switching to another time frame is using the drug Rayos. That's the extended release version. And so people who have things like rheumatoid arthritis, they can take Rayos at bedtime so that the prednisone is released slowly over the night so that when they wake up first thing in the morning, that it's already kicked in, that when they're having their very worst symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, that the Rayos has kicked in and is knocking those symptoms away for them. So that's another strategy you can use is changing the timing, changing the drug metabolism. All right, number 4. If you have to use prednisone with ketoconazole, the ketoconazole is blocking the breaking down of prednisone. So that means there's more drug floating around in your body. So what should we do? We should lower the dose of the prednisone because there's more floating around, less breaking down. So that's what we should do when we give ketoconazole with prednisone. The opposite here is to raise the dose with other drugs that have an interaction with prednisone. Excuse me. Things like phenobarbital and phenytoin and rifampin. They are classic drug interaction drugs that increase the rate that the prednisone is broken down. They make the liver work faster. And that's not necessarily a good thing. It just is what happens. And so you'd want to give more prednisone for those people who have an anti-seizure need. So the ideas were to change the timing, to discontinue the drug that's not needed, to switch to a drug that's metabolized differently, to lower the dose of the prednisone, or to raise the dose of the prednisone. If you have questions about this, you should talk to your doctor and your pharmacist. They can help you troubleshoot this. They have the skills, especially your pharmacist, to optimize your medication therapy so that you can minimize the side effects and feel better. And if you need any more tips about prednisone, I have a prednisone wellness checklist, and you can get it at the link below.
Now that you've seen these videos about prednisone timing, it's important that you avoid the top mistakes people make while taking prednisone. That's why I want you to watch my next video, 7 or more things to avoid while taking prednisone. That way you'll know exactly what to avoid so that you can have the best experience while taking prednisone for however long you're taking it. Signing off as Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist.